Well, hello. I'd like to thank my Korean friends for the opportunity to talk about another side of the ATSC 3 equation. A lot of conversation going on about high quality video and audio services, UHD, 4K, 8K. All of these are very real possibilities to be carried as part of ATSC 3. But as a broadcaster, we're looking for the business opportunities that bring the most value to ourselves and to our industry. And so, if you indulge me, I'm going to walk through a quick presentation, which really focuses on direct to mobile opportunities. Now, what do I mean by direct to mobile opportunities? The question that we have to ask ourselves is, what business are we in? On a global basis, you currently have ATSC3 being recognized for its role as a next generation digital broadcasting standard. And so the adoption by ITU, for example, is a degree of recognition by the industry that ATSC3 plays a potentially pivotal role in television broadcasting, and the shift from television exclusive as a broadcasting capability to broadcasting. And given the IP nature of this standard, we clearly have opportunities to do more than television. In the United States, I can speak to a number of deployments that are underway. Currently, close to 30% of the US population are covered by ATSC3 deployments. We've been a large part of that activity in partnership with Nexstar. The largest broadcasters in the United States have deployed and are in the process of deploying throughout the country. BitPath is our partner, and BitPath is really sewing together the relationships that allow a national presence to be seen for ATSC3 for both television and for these future digital opportunities. We've introduced a broadcast-enabled smartphone, and I'm going to walk through in a short bit the reason why we have focused on mobile opportunities. And I've spent a great deal of time, effort, and commitment organizationally, both here in the United States and with our partners, Sankhya and others in India, to bring a phone into the hands of consumers. Why direct-to-mobile strategy? Well, if one focuses on a mobile capability, you pretty much cover all bases. You have the ability to hit automotive applications. You have the ability to begin to integrate with 4G and 5G and look at the possibilities in a otherwise 3GPP environment to bring broadcast content, one-to-many content, to folks on a global basis. Indoor reception. If you're planning for a direct-to-mobile strategy, you certainly are hitting all the marks that provide the kinds of energy density, RF field density, to reach deep indoors and reach a segment of devices that otherwise are not possible to be reached by conventional broadcasting. And by that I mean high tower, high power, single stick kind of applications. You know, as a gateway device or an ATSC hotspot, building a phone allows new kinds of utility and the sharing of ATSC content via Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and other wireless technologies to a host of devices that don't necessarily have an ATSC chip at its center. And certainly expanding to the world of television as we know it, the ability to reach small devices and at the same time to be able to address the large screen, UHD, 4K, 8K, the immersive audio environment in the home is a possibility through the shared technologies of LDM and SHVC. So we have to ask yourself, where are people spending their time? And clearly, on a growing basis, both domestically, certainly for the United States, but in particular in other parts of the world where almost exclusively viewing is happening on small mobile devices. When we look at the United States, when you look at the amount of time that's spent on a daily basis across television and mobile devices, you see approximately the same amount of content is being viewed, but it's a question of where is it being viewed. And increasingly, it's being viewed on these mobile and portable devices. Certainly a segment as a television broadcaster with the generation of local content and news and entertainment and sports is an area that is an attractive economic opportunity. And the majority of that viewing across devices is and the consumption of data on the networks is video related. And it's not exclusively video. There are other opportunities that we see: software downloads, social networking, these other opportunities which are drivers for the consumption of bits. At the end of the day, the business that we're in is a data distribution platform carrying television and other related services. Now, in the case of globalization of the ATSC, you've got India as an example, focusing on the potential role for ATSC standards in the universe of mobile devices, and a very particular focus on the offloading of data to mobile devices for that most viewed, often watched, linear simultaneous viewing across tens of millions of consumers and their devices. But people aren't just watching television on their portable devices. They're listening to content as well. And so just as an indication of that, a recent study that was done showed that an increasingly large part of the population is engaging in the consumption of audio services on their mobile devices. So as a result of that, we've been working with other opportunities in the development of broadcast focused on ATSC3 distribution of audio content. And we've begun the full integration with Fraunhofer as an example of their digital radio mondial, just as a key indicator that there are literally hundreds of audio channels that are possible to be carried inside of a single RF channel for the purposes of providing varied content in the music domain. If you look at India as another example, where DRM is an established radio technology, you've got hundreds of different languages and program content being distributed on a national basis to a very diverse and fragmented population in the area of languages and music. Now, clearly, ATSC3 should be most properly viewed as a supplement to LTE and to 5G. And I'm saying that because this is not an all or nothing proposition. This is not a matter of one technology versus another technology and which is best. The question is which is best for a particular variety of services. And we've been working with global players in the United States. We've formed a joint venture between Sinclair and SK Telecom for the purpose of beginning to unravel and put back together the integration of ATSC3 inside of that otherwise dominated by the carriers, dominated by 3GPP standards world of distribution of content. So ATSC 3, viewed as a multicast supplement to unicast, means that there are new opportunities in terms of offloading live content from a network that on a unicast basis is required to support millions and tens of millions of simultaneous distributions of the same content. And certainly in a broadcast environment, you have an unlimited number of users that can access the same content without the pixelization, buffering, and freezing that requires in the negotiation process in the unicast network. And as well, when you begin to look at opportunities in the world of gambling as just one example, the near instantaneous and synchronous availability of broadcast content in sub-second fractions of time provide a user experience and a business opportunity that is otherwise unmet in the traditional unicast internet environment. So broadband convergence we see as a practical reality today. And what that means is that there's a need to actually bring that content across multiple networks. And so as recognition of that fact, the ATSC board has recently established a new planning team on core network development. Core network development provides the means for broadcast to be integrated across multiple platforms. So why do we need a core network? Well, we need to leverage our one-to-many delivery capacity broadly. I say on a direct-to-mobile basis because again, if you strive to reach the lowest common denominator, mobile devices, then the ability to reach a multitude of devices is enlarged as a function of that. At the same time, the need of a core network provides an integration of that platform across many other platforms. Again, not one clear, decisive, one and only winner in terms of network distribution, but an expansion of the choices for particular purposes. So you can view the integration of 4G, of 5G, of cable, of satellite with broadcast. And certainly efforts are underway domestically to build out that broadcast network on a national basis. Now, once you know the nature of the business you're going to do, then you need to begin planning for that. And single frequency networks are a big part of that. The advantages of an SFN network really are to provide an expansion of signal availability and, most importantly, leveraging the most amount of bits possible inside of a region of coverage. There's certainly cost associated with building out an SFN, but SFNs at the same time, with that increased uniform signal availability, mean that you can address people and classes of devices in ways on a universal basis that otherwise are not possible. And when you look at the range of possible operating points for the ATSC standard with a maximum bit rate of over 60 megabits per second and a minimum bit rate of 1.6 megabits per second, the variability of the SNR requirements across those really are the variable that you have under control with an SFN. So the higher the density, the more the dense nature of the single frequency network that is designed and built, the more uniform coverage, and therefore the more uniform transmission of bits. And this is an example of that. On the left, what we have is a market with a single high power transmission source over a given coverage area that is identified by the blue line, the 41 dBu contour, an FCC term, but certainly a corollary in many countries in terms of the nature of licensing. And if you look at the percentage of probability of reception in a mobile environment, you in this particular case have a smaller area at a lower bit rate that is possible inside of that market. In this particular case, uh, the smaller area yielding 7.86 megabits per second. The addition of an SFN, as you can see on the right, increases the saturation level, and given the measurement probability of a 20 megabit per second stream inside of that region, the two together in terms of larger areas served and higher bit rate uh, for a given probability of reception really yields a 5 times increase in the number of bits distributed across the number of people inside of that given area. So paying attention to the nature of your business, the nature of your received devices, and the designing of a network properly to meet the objectives is an important criteria with this standard. Again, SFNs allow the building of a high quality of service, and if you're going to be in the distribution business uh, with uh, with folks willing to pay for high quality bits, it's an essential nature of it. And the other opportunities, handheld devices, automotive, indoor access to small devices, are a result of investment in that single frequency network. And I'll give just one use case example. Automotive file over the air transfer. Clearly, the densification of a network, being able to reach all these devices, uh, complex devices in some cases, over a large area is an important opportunity to take advantage of. Next gen, as we know, has largely been focused for many broadcasters on ultra high, UHD broadcast, 4K, and now 8K with new technologies, new codecs coming on, such as VVC, adding a 2x compression capability beyond HEVC. But there's for literally 8 years, this graphic that we generated has been used to begin to show the range of possibilities and the probability of business for broadcasters with next gen broadcasting. So uh, I know that attached to an earlier presentation that was provided, there is a range of additional appendices on opportunities for local news and a TV hub in devices such as tablets. Local news certainly is a core part of a television broadcast business, but we're looking at opportunities with the distribution of newspapers, with newspaper readers. Sports Hub, our co-investment with Bali in the sports arena, and a whole range of other business cases really get secured by the proper mix of the proper technologies utilizing ATSC 3. So I know that I've sort of run through this really quickly, but I'm certainly hoping that the opportunities of ATSC 3 are explored by many beyond 8K and 4K and UHD and great immersive audio. And the other opportunities are leveraged to better serve the public in a range of opportunities. With that, again, I thank my Korean friends for the invitation to speak here today, and I wish you all well.